Good morning everyone, welcome to Raj Malhotra IAS, welcome to our daily Hindu newspaper analysis. I hope you are fit and fine and I am audible to you guys, right? If I am audible to you guys, just give me a confirmation in the text box that I am audible, right? Okay, good morning everybody, right? So yesterday I wasn't not feeling well, as a result I wasn't able to take the Hindu analysis, but today I am fit and fine. As I ask you guys, how are you guys? Today I am fit and fine. I am ready to take the session, right? So starting the session, Supreme Court refuses to stay Election Commission order giving Sena name to Shinde. I think everyone is aware of this particular news that has been revolving around this Shiv Sena name and the symbol that has been now given to the Eknath Shinde faction above, we could say, over Uddhav Thackeray. So as a result, the Uddhav Thackeray had filed appeal in the Supreme Court regarding this Election Commission of India decision that they were giving this particular symbol and the party name to Eknath Shinde faction, but Supreme Court has completely refused that they would stay any Election Commission order. That means they have dismissed Uddhav Thackeray's fears that Election Commission order will have impact on party properties and bank accounts. Apex Court gives 2 weeks to Shinde and poll panel to file their responses. Now, one thing we have to understand that the Election Commission of India has given the basic, we could say, the election symbols under a Election Symbols Reservation and Allotment Order of 1968. This is very important to understand that they have issued this under Election Symbols Reservation and Allotment Order of 1968. So this is the thing that we have to understand in this perspective regarding this war going on between the Eknath Shinde faction and the Uddhav Thackeray faction, right? Now, moving to the next part, India remains a bright spot to contribute 15% of global growth in 2023. Now, I think everyone is aware of this particular perspective that IMF is International Monetary Fund. Recently, Pakistan has been approaching IMF to get the bailout, considering how much its economy is affected, वहां पे कितनी इन्फ्लेशन है और कितना, अगर हम बात करें, पाकिस्तान स्टेट इज इन अ बैड स्टेट राइट नाउ इफ वी टॉक अबाउट देयर इकोनॉमिक एस्पेक्ट्स. Now, one thing we have to understand that IMF has said that global world growth rate, let's say for 23 and 24, they have given the forecast. 22 it would be 3.4% and 2023 it would be 2.9%. But if we consider their basic prospect for India, they have said that for 23 India grows at 6.8% and for 24 it grows at 6.1%. Now that is quite above the average what the world is achieving, right? So one of the reason IMF has said कि India का इतना growth prospect अच्छा क्यों है? Why India has a better growth prospect? One of the reason is basically how पैंडेमिक केम, कोविड पैंडेमिक केम, उसके बाद बहुत ज्यादा अगर हम बात करें एकदम से सब कुछ लॉकडाउन लग गया था एंड इट वाज अ नीड ऑफ द आवर दैट द कंट्रीज हु वांटेड टू हैव अ गुड ग्रोथ और द रॉबस्ट नेटवर्क, दे नीडेड टू हैव डिजिटलाइजेशन, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. और हमने 2015 से अगर हम बात करें, हम डिजिटलाइजेशन की तरफ जा रहे हैं, हमारी सर्विसेज डिजिटलाइजेशन जा रही हैं, काफी चीजें डिजिटलाइज हो चुकी हैं. सो एज अ रिजल्ट दिस हैज रिजल्टेड कि जो कोविड-19 पैंडेमिक आया उससे जो अपॉर्चुनिटीज आई उसको हमने डिजिटल वर्ल्ड के अंदर कैप्चरलाइज किया और उसी का रिजल्ट है जो कि आज हम देख रहे हैं कि इंडिया is now, we could say, one of the fastest growing economies of the world even after the COVID-19 pandemic. It is all because due to the robust policies that we have taken and हमने जो path choose किया, that is of digitalization. Very important. ये चीज समझनी बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है. दिस थिंग इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टू अंडरस्टैंड इफ वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड द क्रक्स ऑफ द इंडियन इकोनॉमी, that how we have digitized and how we are basically creating and tapping the potential in this digitalized world, right? So this thing is very important and you can use this in your answers why India is one of the fastest world growing economies. One of the reason that you can state is digitalization. This can be read from the mains perspective as well. Second thing that is of utmost importance in this regard is our demography, where most of our labor force is in the working age. Very important to understand. So as a result, we have the, let's say, advantage over the other economies of the world because our economy is quite young. We have the demography, we have the young population, and if we are able to provide them jobs, we can create that demography to demography dividend. So as a result, considering how much we have in the potential in front of us, our economy is sure shot to grow beyond 6% if we see the overall scenario, and that has been predicted by the IMF, that is the International Monetary Fund. And IMF and IBRD are also called as the Bretton Woods twins, right? Okay. So these were the two most important news that we have to understand from our mains perspective as well कि इनका क्या major importance है. ये तो हमें अगर हम बात करें prelims point of view से important है, related to election commission, related to election symbols, and this is basically related to the global growth aspects. Okay, moving to the next part. There is nothing that much important over here given in the between pages. Now strictly coming to the editorial part. Now I think everyone could see the first editorial is related to Russia-Ukraine war, and we have read enough about Russia-Ukraine war. If anything conclusive would come, then we will only discuss what is going to happen related to Russia-Ukraine war. Now there is going to be a proposal or a resolution put forward for this United Nations General Assembly, and we have to see what holds there in that particular resolution कि उसमें क्या होता है. क्या रशिया सीज फायर करता है, क्या हॉस्टिलिटीज कम होती हैं रशिया यूक्रेन में, क्या इंडिया रशिया के अगेंस्ट वोट करेगा या इट विल नॉट वोट, जो वो हमेशा से इस पर्टिकुलर कंटेक्स्ट के रिलेटेड करता आया है, दैट इज रिलेटेड टू रशिया यूक्रेन war. So these are the things that they are trying to solve, but we could say the situation is such that the war seems that it will not end anytime soon, right? So this is a particular editorial related to Russia Ukraine war, and they are saying defense कैपेबिलिटीज दोनों के पास है. यूक्रेन इज गेटिंग द सपोर्ट फ्रॉम द वेस्टर्न साइड, रशिया की अपनी सपोर्ट है, रशिया इज गोइंग टुवर्ड्स चाइना एज वेल. नाउ रशिया, नाउ फ्यू डेज बैक इट हैज, लेट्स से, वो इस ट्रीटी से भी बाहर जा चुका है. दैट वाज बेसिकली अ ट्रीटी दैट वाज बिटवीन रशिया एंड यूएस इन ऑर्डर टू, लेट्स से, कट देयर डिप्लॉयमेंट और प्रोडक्शन ऑफ न्यूक्लियर वॉरहेड्स, राइट. सो ये चीज भी अब उन्होंने वापस सस्पेंड कर दी है अगर हम रशिया की तरफ से बात कर रहे हैं. सो वी कुड सी इन द कमिंग कंटेक्स्ट रशिया कैन गो टू चाइना फॉर इट्स मिलिट्री aid or for the defense and arms equipment, but Ukraine is getting all the support from the West, and as a result, only thing that can help this Russia-Ukraine war if there is enough dialogue and both the sides agree that the war is not the solution in this 21st century, right? So this is the thing that you have to understand, and this treaty was recently in the news as yesterday as well. Chaliye. Now this is related to something that was being said in Constituent Assembly. We need not to dwell into this particular editorial, so we can skip this particular editorial, right? Now these two editorials are very important. Let's try to discuss India can become a biodiversity champion. Now here are certain facts that have been basically predicted or portrayed in this particular editorial that we already know. Let's try to make a gist of this and try to have a mind map in this particular prospect, right? So let's try to understand. In this biodiversity editorial, they are saying that recently the world countries in Kunming Montreal framework adopted global biodiversity framework, very important, where they set themselves 23 targets that have to be achieved by 2030, right? So these have been the targets that have been set up by the countries that are a member to United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, under which aegis this particular framework was signed, and they, after the HE targets, they have decided that 23 targets have to be achieved by 2030. One of the major target under which that is very important and is of utmost important is 30 into 30 pledge. Very important, where they are, let's say, countries have vowed that they would try to protect 30% of land and water ecosystems by 2030. Which is in alignment with our sustainable development goals as well, which says life on land and life below water. First thing that we have to remember is that this particular framework has talked about protecting the land and water ecosystems by 2030. That is in total alignment with our sustainable development goals. Along with it, there have been numerous things that have been announced in this particular year budget that we have to understand that are a part of biodiversity only. One of the things that the particular budget has said about a green credit program under the Environment Protection Act 1986, where the companies that are basically going towards sustainable solutions would be adequately, let's say, उनको compensation दी जाएगी और उनको जो अच्छा काम करेगी, sustainable development करेंगी companies, उनको ultimately reward करा जाएगा under green credit program. The second thing that was said in the budget, it was related to MISTI, that is plantation of mangroves. That again is a very important constituent for biodiversity. The third thing was related to Pranam scheme. Now we know that we are using fertilizer and pesticides that is resulting in degradation of soil biodiversity. So in order to protect soil biodiversity and let's say move towards more organic farming and towards less usage of fertilizer and pesticide, this particular mission was launched by the name of PM Pranam scheme. So we could see that there have been programs that have been announced in the budget that are totally in line with the concept that we have investigated in this particular framework, that is protection of biodiversity. Along with it, there was another thing that was said, that was Amrit Drohar for wetlands. This was basically to involve the participation of communities in the protection and conservation of biodiversity, that is the wetlands. So these are the things that have been announced in the budget, right? ये चीजें तो हमें पता है कि हमें बजट में अनाउंस कर दी गई हैं, बट इनको प्रैक्टिकलिटी में लेके आने के लिए बहुत चीजें होती हैं जो हम कहीं ना कहीं लैक करते. लेट्स से हमने अगर बायोडाइवर्सिटी की बात करी, वन ऑफ द इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया ऑफ द बायोडाइवर्सिटी इज द वेटलैंड और द मैंग्रोव्स. अगर हमें वेटलैंड और मैंग्रोव्स को बचाना है, लेट्स से, सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल द प्रॉब्लम दैट वी आर इनकाउंटरिंग राइट नाउ इज द आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ द वेटलैंड्स. हमने देखा है कि अर्बन एरियाज में काफी पोटेंशियल वेटलैंड्स हैं, बट दे आर नॉट माइक्रो मैनेज्ड, they are not adequately managed. Ultimately they become the dump site for our solid and liquid waste. As a result, we are not able to tap in the potential of the wetlands. So first of all is we have to make sure कि हम इनकी माइक्रो मैनेजमेंट कर रहे हैं और प्रॉपर तरीके से अर्बन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के अंदर हम अर्बन वेटलैंड्स को प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हैं. दिस इज वन ऑफ द कंसर्न्स दैट हैव बीन हाइलाइटेड ऑल ओवर द प्रॉब्लम विद द मैपिंग ऑफ द urban wetlands and their conservation. Now the second very important thing is that I think everyone knows that हम कहते हैं कि अगर हमने बायोडाइवर्सिटी को बचाना है ना, तो हमें फॉरेस्ट कवर और ट्री कवर को इंक्रीज कर रहे हैं. This is the thing that we try to say, that if we have to protect the biodiversity, we have to increase the forest cover and tree cover. It is not only about the quantity that here we have to focus upon, but we have to make sure that we are providing a quality as well. That is a landscape cover that is basically trying to restore the ecosystem balance. That is the thing that we have to have in our mind when we are considering the forest cover and tree cover increase. ऐसा नहीं है कि एलियन स्पीशीज बढ़ रहे हैं वही कंट्रीब्यूट कर रहे हैं फॉरेस्ट कवर और ट्री कवर में. वी हैव टू मेक श्योर दैट इफ वी आर फोकसिंग टुवर्ड्स द क्वांटिटी, वी हैव टू फोकस टुवर्ड्स द quality of the forest cover and tree cover as well. And the last thing that is very important in this overall, if we want to become the biodiversity champion, that is Jan Bhagidari. These are the words that have been used by a lot of times by our respected Prime Minister as well. That is, we have to have the participation of community. That is Jan Bhagidari if we have to protect the basically biodiversity. अगर हम किसी भी चीज की बात कर लें, अगर हमारा कोई ऊपर मिशन चल रहा है कि 30/30 हमें प्लेज लिया है, तो हमें जो स्टार्टअप करना पड़ेगा वो तो नीचे से करना पड़ेगा ना. हमें ग्रास रूट लेवल से लोगों को इन्वॉल्व करना पड़ेगा. हमें मेक श्योर करना पड़ेगा कि लोग बेसिकली हमारे जो है कम्युनिटीज पार्टिसिपेट कर रही हैं. सो एवरीथिंग इफ वी हैव टू अचीव, इट हैज टू कम फ्रॉम द लेट्स से पंचायत लेवल, district level, taluka level, state level, and then at the country level, then only we would be able to achieve these targets. Now, one very important thing in this context of conservation of biodiversity, that recently a proposal has been made that along the lines of national missions that we have, 8 national missions we have, that is under National Action Plan on Climate Change, why not we have a national mission on biodiversity and well-being? Very important. It has been approved by certain scientific council and we have to see what it holds for the future course of action. But one thing is very clear, that if we have to talk towards conservation of biodiversity, then these are the points that we have to implement them, we have to make sure that all the loopholes are fixed, and finally then only India can become a biodiversity champion. I hope these points are clear to you and you are able to understand this particular editorial. This is one of the most important editorials if I talk about from the biodiversity point of view, right? Chaliye. Now this particular editorial is the clean gamble. Carbon trading should help India to accelerate the shift away from fossil fuel. Now one of the things we have to understand, we have already discussed in the, let's say, Tuesday session as well, where center is planning that it might introduce emission trading scheme. Yes, that day we discussed in detail emission trading scheme की बात कर रहे थे कि वो introduce कर सकते हैं जून जुलाई के अंदर. It is on the same lines that has been implemented in European Union, where a certain bar would be set up, the permissible emission limit would be set up. If you emit beyond that particular emissions, then you would have to buy certificates from the government, or else you would buy from those people who have overachieved their targets. So this is the basic context that we have to understand, that wants, let's say India अगर वो introduce करता है तो basic purpose क्या है? एमिशंस कम कैसे होंगी? एमिशंस कम एक ही तरीके से होती है जब हम ग्रीन एनर्जी की तरफ फोकस करते हैं, राइट? तो हम फॉसिल फ्यूल से ग्रीन एनर्जी की तरफ फोकस करेंगे, तभी हम इस चीज को अचीव कर सकते हैं. सो दैट इज द थिंग दैट दे आर ट्राइंग टू से. कार्बन ट्रेडिंग शुड हेल्प इंडिया टू एक्सेलरेट द शिफ्ट अवे फ्रॉम फॉसिल फ्यूल्स. अब ये जो टारगेट्स की बात हम कर रहे हैं ना, वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द टारगेट्स. इट ऑल स्टार्टेड अंडर क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल in clean development mechanism, right? These were the things that you have to understand: emission trading, joint implementation and CDM. Then we have the scheme, PAT scheme, that is perform, achieve and trade. Now they are trying to implement on a pan India level whether they want to reduce carbon emissions or not. That could be done by emission trading, but we have to see when it is being implemented, right? Chaliye. So these were the editorials. I hope you are able to understand. Now this is basically a study that has been taken. You can read just the facts, you will be able to understand. No need to dwell so much time, just look at the facts, nothing more than that, right? Now there is a place, basically a Killadi. Killadi is an area in Tamil Nadu where excavations have been done and it has been linked that it has certain traces that belongs to Sangam age as well. Plus, very important, it has certain things that have been found in this particular excavations of the Killadi area that dates back to Indus Valley civilization as well, right? So there are certain things that tries to trace the link with Indus Valley civilization as well, like the pottery system, the terracotta figures. All the things that have been found over here are similar, we could say, in the context of Indus Valley civilization. So this is the thing that we have to understand, that is the area of Killadi. It is in Tamil Nadu, right? Okay. Moving to the next part, why have French troops withdrawn from Burkina Faso? So first let's try to see where is this played, basically Burkina Faso. Let's try to see on the map. Basically, I think if you could see over here, this is the area of Burkina Faso. It is another western part of the country of the African continent. This is basically Burkina Faso and this is Mali. Now there have been attempts by, let's say, Islamist organizations, Lashkar-e-Taiba and Islamic State, let's say to have terrorist related activities. As a result, we could say the governments of Mali or Burkina Faso, that are the military governments, they tried or sought help from French government in order to provide support and the military engagement. Now recently we have seen what is happening in this particular area of Burkina Faso and the Mali area, that the governments over here are saying that you please withdraw from here. Very important. अब उन्होंने बोल दिया भाई फ्रेंच ट्रूप्स आप भी यहां से चले जाओ और वहां से भी चले जाओ. क्यों? क्योंकि यहां पे जो ऑपरेशंस हो रहे हैं, काउंटर इंसर्जेंसी ऑपरेशंस कर रहे हैं बाय द इस्लामिस्ट ग्रुप्स, they are not being controlled, let's say, by this French military that has been provided by the French government. So as a result, if I could say, the governments of the Mali and this Burkina Faso are now more interested in having Russian and the Chinese aid. Very, very important. उनको यहां से चाहिए रशियन और चाइनीज एड, जिसकी वजह से अब यहां से अगर मैं बात करूं, हमारी जो फ्रेंच फोर्सेस हैं दे हैव विड्रॉन फ्रॉम बुर्किना फासो। वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट, अगर आपको इसका मैप वर्क आना चाहिए, बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट एरिया है, बिकॉज नाउ इट हैज बीन let's say given in the newspaper, right? So ये चीज बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट है समझने के लिए, बुर्किना फासो। लेट्स ट्राई टू सी इट वेरी in a gist manner. On February 19, Burkina Faso announced an official end to the operations led by France in the country. France was asked to withdraw its troops from Burkina Faso months after it pulled out its troops from Mali. पहले माली से कर चुके हैं, बुर्किना फासो से कर रहे हैं। The primary reason behind the withdrawal is the failure of its counter-insurgency operations in Sahel region against Islamist groups. Basically, they have not been able to control the insurgency that has been created by the Islamist groups in this Sahel region of Mali and Burkina Faso. Burkina Prime Minister Apollinaire Kelem de Tambele termed Russia as a reasonable choice to continue counter-insurgency efforts. So here we could see how China and Russia are now making inroads into this Western African continent, right? So this is the thing that you have to understand. Burkina Faso, Mali, Sahel region, these are certain facts that you have to understand. Okay. Moving to the next part. Okay, let's see what are the important news. German Danish visits to India to focus on climate change, Ukraine and China. Now, one of the important thing that we have to understand from our point of view is, last year a climate club was set up by G7, very important. Climate club was set up under G7 where they are trying to set certain ambitious targets like decarbonizing the economy, second, achieving net zero emissions by 2050. Now, one of the things that they also want is India to be a part of this climate club, but India has already told that they would achieve their net zero emissions by 2070, and when it talks about decarbonizing the economy, India का मतलब है कि वो धीरे धीरे अपनी डिपेंडेंसी कम करेंगे फॉसिल फ्यूल्स के ऊपर, अगर उनको फाइनेंशियल एड मिलेगी तभी वो क्लीन एनर्जी की तरफ शिफ्ट करेंगे. That has been the official stance if I talk about India in relation to net zero emissions, but these countries are, let's say, optimistic that India would become a part of this climate club that was set up by G7 last year. Very important. Okay. Moving to the next part. Now, this has been a special, let's say, government has said, according to new education policy, that only children above 6 must get class 1 admission. Very important. जो बच्चे 6 साल से ऊपर हैं उन्हीं को एडमिशन देनी चाहिए, किसके अंदर, क्लास 1 के अंदर. This is in relation to their overall development, right? So this is the very important thing that has basically come in this particular regard, that is in line with our new education policy. Okay. Moving to the next part, nothing important over here. Then finally we have China-Russia ties not aimed at other countries. During a visit to Moscow, CCP's foreign policy chief says both nations support multipolarity. Russian president says relations between two countries are key to stabilize international situation. So you could see the things are the bonhomie that is going on between Russia and China. Okay. Israel के तो लड़ाइयाँ होती रहती हैं. Now one thing very important to understand, Seattle becomes the first city in the US to ban caste discrimination. Now this is a very different kind of legislation that has been done by the works that have been done by the various groups that tries to ban this caste discrimination, and Seattle has become the first city in the US to ban this caste discrimination, right? Okay. Moving to the next part, finally we have economics news, nothing important over here. If we could see, right, everything they are trying to say related to wheat output, थोड़ी गर्मी ज़्यादा आ रही है, maybe it would hamper the wheat output, right? Cotton output likely to rise 8%. So these are the things that we have to see to the when these things come in the, let's say, total reality, right? Okay guys, this is it for today. We will be uploading the PDF by afternoon that you would get regarding this particular newspaper, right? So till then, if you have any doubt, you can ask me, or otherwise I'm going to end the session and take your leave. It has been a pleasure teaching you guys, and see you tomorrow, same time, 9 AM. Thank you. You can say that, you can say that, you can say that. That is why India has already, Rajinder, cleared its stance that it would be slowly and slowly decarbonizing its economy, right? Okay. चलिए जी, थैंक यू सो मच गाइस, टेक केयर, बाय बाय, सी यू टुमारो सेम टाइम 9 AM.